Welcome everyone, Shabbat Shalom. It's great to be with you and to be in the sanctuary together tonight. And we're delighted to have two special guests, Lina, Ramos, and Melissa Riedel, as well as special thanks to Jolene, who's been playing piano for us, and Wendy, of course. So we're all going to celebrate, sing a little bit, pray together. Let's begin on page 128 with the words of Hine Matov. Hine Matov U'Manayim from Psalm 133. Favorite Shabbat melody in the middle of the same page, Yedid Nefesh, My Heart's Delight, middle of page 128. Let's turn to page 121 for meditation and the blessing over the Shabbat candles, top of page 121, and then the blessing in the middle of page 120. Our president, Sheila, will lead us in the prayers. Okay.
This is virtual. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Let's sing together. Baruch atah Adonai Let's read together. We're on page 126. 126. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created, and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us, and to bring that vision to life. So let's turn to the Psalms, as we always welcome Shabbat with the beautiful 6 Psalms. Shabbat is an intimation of the Messianic time, and each of these Psalms refers to not only God's holiness, but the relationship, the ultimate coming together of humanity and the divine, when all shall be, so to speak, resolved in the Messianic time. So we're on page 130, and we're singing the first verse of L'chu Neranena. Together at the bottom of the page. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai, raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you but heed God's charge this day. Let's read together from Psalm 97, top of page 133. Adonai is sovereign, let the earth exult and the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God. Righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name. So we turn to the beautiful melody of Lela Dawkins. As we sing this every Shabbat, these words were composed some 500 years ago in the town of Tzfat in northern Israel by the Spanish Kabbalists. So we're going to sing verses 1, 2, and then if you're able, stand up and we sing verse 9 together as well.
Thank you.
Please be seated. Let's turn to the beautiful words of Shalom Aleichem. And you know, when you greet someone, whether you're in Israel or Johannesburg or wherever, New York, and you say Shalom Aleichem, what is the answer? Aleichem Shalom. May there be upon all of us peace. So we're singing together, page 142. We stand and chant the Chatzi Kaddish, page 144, the half Kaddish. Yikada, Yikada, Shunei Rabba, V'amadi B'rachirote, V'amlik Malchute, V'chayecho, U'v'yomecho, U'chayedecho Beis Yisrael, Amen. Baruch the call to worship, we're all on page 146, middle of page 146. Let's read together. We're in the middle of 148, the first blessing, which is known, the evening blessing, Hamariv Aravim, God who brings forth the evening for us. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night, distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. The second blessing, giving thanks for Torah and for the gift of law and the gift of instruction to all of us, page 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life and doing and lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Let's lift up our voices and sing together the Shema Yisrael. Page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Achutov, Leolam Vaed. Let's be seated, please. So we continue as we do on every evening and morning service with the words of V'ahavta from Deuteronomy chapter 6. Let's read together page 154. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol lavavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha v'bitecha v'belechtecha v'derech v'v'shachpecha v'kumecha v'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot ein enecha v'ktaptam al mezuzot beitecha v'visharecha l'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'lohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lechem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead, on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy unto your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's turn a few pages to the words of Mi Chamocha, where the words from the book of Exodus, and we're on page 158. Sing the song of men and women, we're on page 159, joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. So let's read in the middle of 160 the translation of the Hashkivenu, the special blessing that we read on Friday evening to remind us that God protects us and watches over us on this Sabbath day. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel for your name's sake. Be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and our coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel. The shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Adonai, Aporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, Al Kol Amo Yisrael, Yal Yerushalayim. We're going to sing with Lina and Melissa Vishamru. Turn the page, please. We're on page 162, top of the page, singing together. Turn now to the tefillah, to the 7 blessings of the Shabbat evening service. We're on page 164 Please rise if you're able, and we'll sing together, beginning with the words from the psalm, from Psalm 51. Adonai sevatati tachu v'yagiti latecha. Adonai, open up my lips, and my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Ahad, Ha'el Gadol Ha'gibor Ha'Norah, Elohei Yom, Gomel Chasadim Dovim, Ve'Gonei Yaakov, Ve'Zocher Chaskel Ha'od Imahot, U'Mimigula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Yahweh, Melech Hosea U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Yitzchak. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, v'chayei kol et harav le'Hoshia, v'koher na'im b'chesed, v'chayei kol berachamim rabim, shomei noflim b'rofei cholim, u'matir asurim, u'mekayem emunato, v'shenei afar, v'kamoka ve'al gevurot, u'midom elav, melech memir u'mekayem, u'masmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, v'chayei hakol. Let's read together. We're on page 171, top of the page. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Let's all be seated, please. Together we'll read, we're on 173, top of the page. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We come to the beautiful blessing called the Ritzeh, which means to ask God for favor, that God will give us favor and accept our prayers in love. And Melissa will sing it for us. We're on 174.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam ba'ahava tekabel u'tehil ratzon tamid
Let's read together the prayer of thanksgiving, top of page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, Hatov Shimcha, Lecha Na'el Lehodot. We come to our seventh blessing, the blessing of peace, Shalom Rav. We're on page 178. Let's all join our voices together in singing. For our own personal prayers.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, be acceptable to you. Lord, my rock, and my Redeemer, Lord, my rock and Redeemer. Amen.
So we're in the midst of the book of Numbers, and And we're going through a leadership crisis. And when you hear the name Korach, which happens to be the title of the Torah portion, you think demagogue. You think someone who's trying to grab power, someone who engenders controversy, the rabbis said. How does Moses react to these problems? He is faced at this moment with probably the most difficult crisis, leadership crisis he has encountered. And in fact, he responds with passion and with understanding and with empathy, rather than lashing out at those who are ready to go after him. And the reason for that is very straightforward. The God that Moses worships is known in Hebrew as El Rachum V'Chanun, the God of endless mercy and compassion. So first, Moses reacts to this insubordination by trying to understand what these rebels really want. Rather than punishing them or throwing them out of the camp, he engages in all kinds of maneuvers and negotiations. He's trying to postpone the inevitable clash, which is going to be very painful. He's hoping that Korach will in fact back down. Korach wants the priesthood. He's not happy that the Levites have been given the priesthood. He, being an eminent leader in his own tribe, feels that he and his cousins should be leaders and on equal status with the Levites. So what Moses does is to summon two other cohorts of work with Korach, namely Datan and Aviram, and implore them, cajole them, bring them back to the camp, bring them back to the loyalty of the one God. And when they refuse to come, what does Moses do? He says, let's take a pause. Come tomorrow morning. The Lord will let us know what is what. And that's a way of saying we need a spiritual pause. We need to rest. Think about it. Let's not react too hastily. The Torah records that when first faced with these rebels, Moses then fell on his face. He and his brother fell on his face. That's a famous biblical idiom, which means it's a metaphor for showing humility and supplication. When you fall down on your face in the ancient world, you were, so to speak, bending your knee to pray towards the Almighty. He is obviously upset. Outwardly, he sounds cool and calm, but he is extremely upset because this is not the first rebellion that he's had to deal with in the last few months. Remember the golden calf? Remember all the murmurings in the desert about they didn't like the water, the food, the manna, the this and that. And then, of course, just 2 weeks ago, we had the story of the 12 scouts who went to check out the land of Israel and come back with a negative report. So he is filled, Moses is filled to the top of his kept it with memories of rebellions. But he has to figure out a way to deal with Korach in an equitable fashion. Not only that, in a conciliatory fashion, because he's ultimately not the person who can chastise. He's not the person who can actually punish Korach. Moses is just a messenger, remember. So, what does he say at a moment of anxiety? He says, how long can I impose this on a king? In other words, how many times am I going to have to deliver the message to God that these gentlemen, these quote leaders, these machers, have a right to say what they are saying? Because what they're really saying is, we're going to be in charge and forget about God's word. Rashi explains this issue in the following way. He's trying to show how Moses uses leadership techniques to solve an almost insoluble problem. Rather than lashing out at his adversaries, Moses demonstrates confidence in his own leadership and demonstrates the ability to keep on negotiating, even if he knows deep within himself that things are not going to work out too well. Rather than employ force in order to impose his will, Moses makes an effort to discuss, to negotiate, to even procrastinate in hopes that these guys on the other side of the fence will come around. So why do I give you this whole long synopsis of a biblical story? Because we're living in the same world today where leadership is of crucial importance. We are dealing with multiple crises in our country, in the world, and we have leaders who at times seem not to know what in the world to do in order to lead us. Occasionally there are, in fact, people, political leaders who have stood up and offered reasonable, thoughtful, and compassionate explanations, one of whom I would say very candidly is Governor Mario Cuomo. Excuse me, Andrew Cuomo. His late father was Mario, right? But I want to kind of hone this into what's really happening today and why it's so important to have an incredibly powerful but understanding leader. We are living with 5 major crises right now, in case you haven't been overwhelmed by watching TV and the news. First of all, we have the COVID battle, which we're losing. Then we have a rapid education, which is going on across the country vis-a-vis our relationships with Afro-American citizens and every other person of color in America, because we're finally realizing that America is not such a wonderfully compassionate and understanding society which gives equal rights to everybody under the sun, even though it's guaranteed in our Constitution. So there's a lot of education going on, and some of it may not always go down the tube so easily. The third crisis we're facing is a political realignment. Parties are fracturing. And people said, I believe in this party, or I believe in that party, or I'm for this person, or I'm for that person. Suddenly there's a lot of shakiness. People are not sure. And people are realizing that the reason they may not have such great obeisance to their party is, where are the leaders? Who is standing up to say something sensible, intelligent, and empathetic to the Americans who are suffering so much? The fourth crisis is we're in an economic recession, if not depression. It is a very problematic economic times. And if you think the stock market is an indicator of what's really going on in the economy of America, it is not. What's really going on is still that 38 or 40 million people are out of work. And it's affecting all of us. It even affects us right here in this little congregation. And the fifth crisis is there is a new kind of quasi-religion, I would suggest, called social justice that's permeating the political and the intellectual atmosphere of America right now. And social justice is a kind of newly constructed ideology which says if there's going to be a power struggle between two different groups, the oppressors and those who are oppressed, then those who are oppressed have to be liberated and freed, and the oppressors have to be put aside or put down. And you can see this on television every night. And it is a very hurtful, painful ideology to live with right now. You may not agree with me about this, but this is a conversation, this is a crisis that's really going on. Does it make sense to tear down every statue in America that has of a man or woman who had something in any remote way to do with the Civil War? If you were a New Yorker, I grew up in New York, and one of the most beautiful monuments in New York City is Grant's tomb, up on Riverside Drive around 85th, 90th Street. Some people say Grant was the worst, terrible president we ever had because he condoned, in some sense, slavery, which is absolutely not true. But there is a part of this social justice ideology which says Grant believed in slavery. Grant was the only president after the Civil War who fought vociferously and vehemently and physically against the KKK, who were taking over the political reins of Mississippi and Alabama. In fact, Grant was the only president that we had in the 1870s who had the guts to send the US Army down to Mississippi to fight against the KKK regiments who were trying to absolutely destroy all of the black citizenry and the black politicians in the state of Mississippi. So he deserves a tremendous amount of credit for helping America somehow deal with the post-Civil War issues that were obviously extraordinary. And yet in this social justice ideology that's now permeating America, and I think it's a crisis, we are told we have to get rid of all these monuments, all these figures, all these statues. Yes, many of them need to go, but social ideology does not mean that one group is always oppressed and the other group automatically has to be the oppressors and therefore should be punished. That's why I'm giving you the example of General President Grant. How we're going to solve 5 crises like this? The truth is we're just going to have to endure them, probably for the next year or 2. And God willing, things will improve in various empirical ways. But we need leaders, and that's what the Korach story is all about. We need leaders not only who care about our community, but aren't worried about their own self-aggrandizement in running the community. We need leaders who stand beyond the community and talk about what we can do together to lift ourselves up, to be kinder to each other, to help each other, to understand that not everything in America is right, but not everything in America is so terrible either. We're still one of the greatest countries in the world, if not the greatest. And with that kind of leadership, which is the leadership of Moses and Aaron, we can slowly walk through the path of these 5 crises and figure out a better path to enter into. Korach was a demagogue, but he taught us many great lessons. And the most important is leadership begins with humility, understanding, empathy, and the ability to stand straight and tall before a public and speak the truth. Speak the truth, whether it comes from scientific data or whether it comes from other empirical data. We need real truth to be spoken today. Shabbat shalom. So we're going to think about many of our congregants who are still recovering and getting stronger, and anyone you're thinking about who is in need of a special prayer for healing and strengthening, both physically and emotionally. Let's think of our board member, Lynn Kelly, and also Doreen Hertig, Flo Vinnick,
Avery Wassner and Lowell and Ann Hawkins,
Avery Wassner and Lowell and Ann Hawkins,
Toby Carps,
thank you. Bonnie Cantor, any other? Alma?
Ariella Minnick,
Thank you. Ariella Minnick.
Norma Brenner,
Norma Brenner.
Bob Hunt, and Chuck DeLevy.
Bob Hunt and Champ. So we'd like to invite Lina and Melissa to sing the Misha Berach for us.
Mishaberach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Mishaberach Imotenu, Zara, Rivka, Leah,
So thank you again to Lina and Melissa for joining us and offering such beautiful music, and also to our choir director, Kay Fowler, who's been helping us behind the scenes. And also thanks to Lela for recording the service tonight. If you want to join us for Shabbat Torah study, just go on Zoom tomorrow morning, and we get together around 9:30, and we're all there. All you have to do is press your Zoom button, and you'll find us. Next Shabbat, we will be recording the service a day or so before Shabbat, so everyone will be able to watch the service on Friday evening in the comfort and beauty of your own home. Any other special announcements for the new?
Thank Jolene and Wendy for their musical contribution.
Yes, and thank you especially Wendy and Alma, who have been offering us great music all the last 4 months, and Jolene, who is our accompanist. And Robert?
I just wanted to point out that I'm staring out at a car that's had its lights on for best part of 3/4 of an hour. I thought it was someone coming in. It's a white kind of SUV type of car. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, okay, all right. So let's let's come to our final prayers, and then we'll have a little challah together and wine, and we'll have a socially distanced Oneg Shabbat. Everybody will be safe and sound. We're on page 586 for the Aleinu, page 586. Let's all rise if you're able, and we'll sing together. Aleinu l'shabbat l'adon ha'kol, v'tetu l'yotzei breshit, shelo asanu k'koyei harason, v'lo zamanu k'mishukot adama, shelo zamanu k'koyei, v'gor aleinu k'chol amonam, v'anachnu korim, U'meshacharim u'morim, Lifnei Melech Molodei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ne'emar ve'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, Vayom Vayom Mahu Yeh Adonai Echad, U'Shemo Echad. Let's remain standing for a moment before we come to the Kaddish prayer. And if you'll turn to 583, we can all read together page 583 in the English.
My husband's outside.
Oh, okay. Together on 583, in the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as they live, we too shall live. For now they are part of us as we remember them. So before we read the Kaddish, we remember with love and devotion those whose yahrzeits are remembered on this Sabbath. Frida L. Berman, mother of William Berman, Bill Berman, Rabbi Abraham Klausner, noted American rabbi, friend of our congregation. Kate Klein, the daughter of Susan Roth. Jacob Levine, father-in-law of Sandy Levine. And Frances Mandelbaum, mother of Marlene Maslow. Are there any other yard signs for tonight? Please turn to 598. Join me. We're on page 598. We'll recite the Kaddish prayer. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rava, Yamad yibrach yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon, chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rava mevarach le'olam amei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shmei d'kudsha b'richu, Lela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, ta'miran bi'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, kayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. V'aseh shalom b'romav, v'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen.
Shalom Niromah, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'Yakov Yisrael, Ve'Yiru, Amen.
So please join me for the Kiddush. I have to take the mask off because I can't breathe through it. The words for the Kiddush prayer, the sanctification of the seventh day, are on page 123. 123. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei beri hagafen. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'rata banu, v'shabbat kadsho v'yahava u'ratzon inchilanu, zikaro lema'aseh v'reshit, hiu yom techilah lemikra'e kodesh, techel yetziat Mitzrayim, kivanu lachata, v'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kadshecha, v'yama u'ratzon, inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
Everybody can join me at home.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together, as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Good Shabbos, everyone. Shabbat shalom. No,
All right, good job, ladies.
really cut it. Some people get upset. Thank you.